Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to the show. Today is part two of my podcast with my mate Noah. In part one, we learnt about his career in South Africa and how he became a professional footballer. Now, in part two, the story takes quite the turn. He ends up in America, and we're going to learn about what happened there, what happened in America, what happened since then, and ultimately what happened to his career. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and all those good things. And yeah, enjoy the video. Yeah.
I saw kids from that college team go on to play pro in Europe. And so I was like, well, this is another way, like this is another avenue. And I get to get a great college degree at the same time is like a really attractive proposition. Had I made more progress in that period of time, maybe I would have made a different decision. But ultimately, it was the best decision I ever made, moving to the US. And in the US, so I like college football in the US is very different. It's very competitive. People are like there's a lot of really good players. But the season is very short, which I wasn't used to. So you really only have like a 3-month season, and then the rest of the year is really just training, which was very different for me. I was used to playing for like 10 or 11 months of the year.
Yeah.
But in spite of that, I had a really good time. I had 2 really good seasons in college. We won our conference one year and went to like the NCAA playoffs, which is like the national tournament basically. And the second year we didn't quite make it, but still had a pretty good season. And then I was 21, I think, or 22, and felt like this was my only opportunity. If I wanted to go pro, it was kind of like a now or never thing. And so I thought to myself, like, this is it. I need to either do it now or never do it. And so decided to kind of have a run at it. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And the great thing is I could come back and finish my college degree if it didn't work out. So I was, again, in a very privileged position that not a lot of people get to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, what an opportunity. But I think, so now you're on the cusp of, well, I mean, it's very much kind of a fork road in your life, I suppose. You were gonna give it a chance, like give it a proper shot, or you were gonna, probably go the other way and focus more on your academics. But before you tell me sort of which road you went down and how it ultimately went for you, I want to know, what was it like playing playing football in America, having come from playing football in Africa and South Africa? Because apart from the culture of the people and that sort of thing, like what was it like training at a professional club in South Africa versus training at a college team in America? Which was better? Which do you feel was better for you in terms of your development?
I think they were very different in a lot of ways. It was a very different environment, right? Because I'd come from professional soccer in South Africa, and I think what people forget is like when you're a pro, it really becomes your job.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is like very competitive, not only with other teams, like with each other, because you're fighting for your next contract, you're fighting, and like we said earlier, a lot of people who have taken that road, that's really the only option at that point, right? So it's like you're like fighting for your next paycheck. So it's like a very like frictional environment.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is trying to beat everyone out. There's like a constant focus on just performance all the time. And then I went to college in the US, and I think part of it is a product of the college that I was at, which is a very academically focused college. that there were a couple kids who were like, oh, I want to make it pro. There were a couple kids who were like, we'll see where this goes. Like, I love soccer. I'm here like for the education. There were a couple of kids who were just like, I'm just here because I like playing soccer. Like, I like playing soccer. It got me into this college. It's fun. But I really do not want to be a pro. I want to go and be a doctor, or I want to go and do whatever else. And so the environment is different from that perspective. And then the other thing about the like kind of difference is not only are you teammates, but you're also like social friends. So like in college in the US, like you arrive and a lot of people everyone's from all over, right? There are a few kids from nearby, but basically everyone's meeting everyone for the first time, and everyone's looking for friends. And you have this like built-in friend group. Everyone has common interests because everyone's playing soccer. Everyone's in college, like everyone's kind of the same age and really more from the same background than I had experienced before. And so for me, it was very different because it was like, oh, now I'm like with a friend group who I'm just playing soccer. We just happen to be playing soccer with. Versus before, it was like I mentioned, I think they all felt like I was an outsider in some ways, even though I didn't feel like I was an outsider. And suddenly it was like a very different culture. And like, I guess to that end, some of those guys that I played soccer with at college are still like my friends today that I hang out with. So it's cool. Like it was just a very different experience. In terms of the soccer itself, it was a very different style. Everyone in the US was ultra fit, ultra competitive in like terms of soccer, and like everybody is like very focused. Versus I think the South African environment and attitude is a little bit different, but it was a learning curve for me, and I struggled to adapt in the beginning.
Look, I mean, you were coming from a completely different culture and country, a different style of football as well, like you say, different intensity. But I mean, from what you're telling me, you managed to cope. I think you were finally a first choice keeper for that team. So what happened? How did it go? You said you did 2 seasons, you won your conference, you made it to the playoffs. I mean, that alone, to be honest, dude, that alone, most people will never experience in their lives. They'll never experience anything like that, to actually have won something, with their football club, let alone winning like a 5-a-side tournament or something like that, which ultimately means nothing. Like you did achieve.
I've still never won a 5-a-side tournament for what it's
neither
worth.
have I. Don't worry. At least we're equal on that. But I don't think you should ever knock your achievement. I think you achieved something incredible in that regard. But then, where did it go from there? After that, those 2 really good seasons, what happened?
Yeah. So I tried to play in Europe somewhere. I went on a few trials at different places, and none of them panned out for different reasons. I spent some time at a team in Israel. I spent some time at a team in Switzerland. And neither of them panned out. Either they didn't like me, or there was some other circumstance which they couldn't sign me, which I think I probably didn't deserve to sign for either. And ended up back in South Africa. And the easiest place for me to go was back to my old club at Wits, where people already knew me. I think they thought I was okay. And so ended up signing the following season for the first team at Wits.
Okay.
At this time, you mentioned Munip. I think Munip was there at that time.
Okay.
Another like bunch of really good goalkeepers were around. So it was, that environment was also great because Munip, being so experienced, was all about helping the younger guys get better. And I think that was a lot of the players that they had signed at that time. It was like the Matthew Booths and the other guys who were there in that season were kind of older, more experienced. And while we were trying to push to win the league that year, I think there was also a big focus on developing the younger guys because they didn't feel as threatened, right? Because they had already done their thing and they were kind of in the twilight of their careers. And so I came in and I was like, this is fantastic. Like I have such a good mental system. Like the goalkeeper coach is amazing. It was Andre Arendt. So I was like, wow, this is like South African goalkeeping royalty around me.
He really is. He really
Um,
is.
yeah.
He once signed a football for me at a airport, and all he had on him was a violin, which was weird. But yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah, that is weird. So it's really like I was like again just absolutely flourishing and loving it for the first period, the first call it 6 months, and then realized over time I am gonna need to actually play some games if I'm gonna have a career, right? These
Were
guys are
you
all
in the
great.
reserves? Were you back in the reserves there? Were you playing in the reserves, or were you on the bench for the first team? Were they actually keeping you for the first team instead of giving you games?
Yeah, so at that time I was only like playing in the first team, so I didn't get any games except for friendlies.
Hmm.
And I was the third choice goalkeeper, so I didn't even get on the bench.
Such as
The
a
other thing
goalkeeper's
is
life, eh?
the goalkeepers. I know the other thing is the goalkeepers didn't really get hurt ever in our team, so it was like I was just like on the side, which in hindsight was okay. Um, it was expected. Like these guys have been playing for long and they're very experienced. So I don't know that I could expect anything different really.
Hmm.
Um, but after some period of time, it got a bit frustrating, right? Like you go to training, you train
Sure.
really hard, and like I was gung ho at that point, right? I was like, this is my shot. I'm gonna take it with both hands. And then suddenly you find yourself kind of on the sidelines, and it's not easy mentally to kind of to, to put together like I'm trying so hard, this is all supposed to fall into place for me versus like what's actually happening, which is like no matter how hard you try, if the dude in the position who's the first choice goalie is super experienced and is playing well, like there's no reason for them to change anything. So it was tough. Like that year. What started off really exciting became very difficult very quickly, from like my own emotional like standpoint. Um, and then so the first season goes, and I'm like, this is too. Then I take a step back. And I'm like, this is to be expected. You came back. You are no one. Like they signed you on for another year, right? You've proven out that they at least value you enough to sign you again. So maybe this is my year. Like this is going into the second year. Um,
And
so we
the other two
go.
goalkeepers ahead of you going into the second year, what was their contract status? Did you know that they would also be staying on? And, but you thought, okay, this is the season where I can actually push them because they're getting a bit older. I'm going into the prime of my career, so to speak. Was that kind of your thinking at the time?
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't remember exactly, but I remember feeling like I have an opportunity to push them. And
Mm.
and, and my thought was all I need is someone to just get hurt. If someone gets hurt and I get my chance, then I can prove that I deserve to be here.
Hmm.
Um, as it turns out, I did not get that chance. They all continue to play well, and it got again like very quickly got very frustrating. And I was like, I realized that so now I'm 24, right? It's just like I'm getting to the point where I'm really supposed to be making an impact. Um, and I quickly realized that this is kind of going nowhere. And my two choices are really, do I leave Wits and go somewhere else? And I had a few other opportunities to go to other teams, but there were no guarantees that I was going to make an impact there either. Um,
Yeah.
they wanted to sign me on like longer term deals. And I was thinking, like, I was sitting there thinking, okay, I'm 24. I signed this 4-year contract. I'm going to be 28. And then, like, I'm really committed here to this, like, soccer dream that's not working so far. Or my other option is to just call it quits and say, like, this was a great time. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. This has shaped me as a person, and was a period in my life, and then go and find something else that really excites me. And I think ultimately the decision was the latter, that I should come back to the US, finish my college degree, and then look for something else. And so there was a 6-month period right at the end where I was like, oh well, I want to see if I can either play or just do something different. And so I went on loan to a second division team that was based in Cape Town. One of my very close friends had also just signed with a team in Cape Town, and so we went and we were roommates and just had like a really great time for the second half of the season.
Did you play much?
That was I did not. I did not. They actually had another good goalie there, who was already playing, and so I think they were concerned because they didn't really have good backup. I thought I was going to go there and just play easily, but I got there and realized that this guy's been playing really well, and there's no need for them to change anything. Again, same situation, and so he ended up playing out the rest of the season, and I was sitting on the bench, but all good. I was not too concerned at that point. I was just content to be enjoying life and have. And at that point, I had already decided that I was moving back to the US at the end of the season, and so I was less. I wasn't frustrated about not playing. I was just like, oh, if they need me to play, I'll play. If they don't need me to play, that's cool too. If I get to hang out with my buddies, that's fine. And so that was kind of the end of my football career at that point.
It seems that it ended there, but it didn't end. It didn't end on a sour note. It ended the South African, part of your career ended. It didn't end on a bad note. It ended sort of on your own terms, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And again, like that goes back to me being super privileged and super lucky, because I did have another option. I think a lot of people don't have that option and go through the same challenges that I went through. But I always knew in the back of my mind, especially after I had started college, that there was another option for me, and I could go and do something else. And I think a lot of people don't have that or don't feel like they have that. And I can only imagine how much more taxing that is on your mental health, knowing that this is your only option and it's not going well.